Hi, I'm Michelle Deeming and I'm the Alternative Provision Lead Teacher within Leicester City. I just wanted to share some of the partnership working that we have been completing and as a result of the Change Programme partnership. So we've been working really closely with Leicestershire and Rutland. We've created an alternative provision handbook for our schools, and then we've also created an alternative provision directory of providers that we know are within our region and our schools are using. To support schools further, we have created a quality assurance framework, and we're using that to check on all of the alternative provisions that are within the directory to make sure that they are meeting the national standards and schools can feel safe and secure in the knowledge that they're placing their young people within quality provision that is meeting health and safety standards, as well as providing a secure curriculum offer. Schools have really appreciated this work. It's saving them time, it's saving them money, and it's really proving helpful for them as they move forward in their journey using alternative provision. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Sarah Mounsey. I work for the Early Years Support Team within Leicester City Council. We're one of the SEND support services. My proudest moment of working within the Change Programme was having the opportunity to put in a bid for funding through the LSEC programme. In Leicester, we decided to have a look at the Early Talk Boost Plus programme to focus it on our early years settings and the groups of children who need that support with their language to close the gap for a good level of development. We'd done this previously within Leicester, so we had things kind of set up. The funding allowed us to buy 30 additional packs to roll across our early years settings in the PVI sector. It also allowed us to train 4 instructors who would deliver the training around how to use Early Talk Boost to our settings. And from this, we've established a network. So the momentum has really got going within our settings who have been part of it. We've touched over 200 children who have been part of language groups, and all those children have made progress within their speech, language and communication. The settings are enthusiastic, they want more, they're keen, they're accessing other speech and language training, and a big positive is that we've just secured additional funding through family hubs so we can have more Early Talk Boost packs, and we can grow our network across more PVI settings and nurseries within schools.
So I'm Hayley Dilts, and the CEO of Leicestershire SENDAP Parent Care Forum.
I'm Richard Jarambut, Chair of Leicester City Parent Care Forum, but also the Regional Director for the NNPCF.
I'm Dion Roundhill. I am Rutland Parent Care Forum Chair.
Brilliant. And you've all been involved in the LLR Change Programme journey. Have you all been involved in it from pretty much the start, or have some of you come in at different times?
I've come in last year. I am aware of it, but I was late to the group.
I was involved from the beginning, and then the CPP Change Programme started with the, what was that? The self-assessments, the initial ones.
The LAPES.
The LAPES.
Yeah. Local Area Improvement Plans. Yeah. So and also I was there from the beginning too.
And it feels like even more so than other areas, the partnership working has been sort of really distinctive across LLR as 3 local areas. How much do you feel like the Change Programme has kind of been a catalyst for that, and what would you point to as an example of that?
So I think one of the biggest things for us, and we're all in agreement about this, is that previous to the Change Programme, we were all quite 3 separate entities that kind of bumped into each other along the way. The Change Programme has meant that we've been brought together collectively, strategically, and that has really empowered the parent carer voice in the space, I think, and given really strong value to what parent carers can bring to the strategic space.
And has that informed the co-production charter? Do you feel like that's something that's strengthened? Could you tell me a little bit, maybe Richard or Dion, about the co-production charter?
I think the co-production charter has been informed by that, but it has also developed the kind of relationships that we have. So I think there is, I think we're getting to a point where we also disagree and also agree openly, and we will still be
Friends.
And work towards the goals that we need to work on. So I think it's the co-production has been quite a good point where we're saying, I think every voice is welcome, and this is something that we're doing very well. And also we are getting to speak to, within the space that we're in the co-production space, we can speak to our local authorities as well, because we are sharing good practice from a co-productive sense from our relationships, but we're taking them back on board into our local spaces.
The Alliance has pushed that as well, though, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The SENDAP Alliance has made it great for everyone to co-produce, and everyone's voices are so equal. And I feel since we've been involved in the Alliance, everyone's voices
Singing the same hymn sheet.
Saying that the Alliance is part of that development from the CPP. So it's our local development from the CPP. So it has worked in that way, where we've brought this as a vehicle of co-production that we still use.
I think there's because of how we sit geographically, there's a certain amount of fluidity for our parent carers within the spaces that we all sit in. But I think one thing, being in that co-productive space has allowed all of us to really explore and understand the nuances and differences between each other, but also support each other collectively in that space, and therefore feed into the sort of the bigger picture and the strategic picture across health, education, social care, with a solidarity of voice, really, I think.
Yes. And Dion, is there a particular example of where you think that kind of strength of co-production has really improved something that's being delivered through the Change Programme?
Not particularly through the Change Programme, I wouldn't say. At the minute, because obviously PINs, we're all very separate. Obviously, Rutland have only got one school, Leicester City, but even though we do all go for the training, we don't really. It's more an individual area, isn't it? I suppose. LSEC though, I suppose that's one. But no, I don't, because obviously I'm very late to the team.
Can I just give a bit of a background? Because Dion took over from a colleague that we had that's late, that passed, but she did a big part in the Change Programme.
Massive part, yeah.
So it's that development that she comes on, especially with the part that Rutland actually played within the Change Programme.
I came very late to the Change Programme, basically. But Rutland were massively involved. So Sue, who unfortunately passed away, she was in the beginning, wasn't she, with all the change at the beginning?
I hope, and I think you do, feel that the space of co-production and the safety of the togetherness, Richard and I have been able to really support Dion's transition into that space in a more formal way, and help support you to sort of
massively,
be equal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually, it sounds really bad, but a bad event has made us all come. We've done more work in the last year together than I think we have in about 10 years.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's to do with the Change Programme as well, and the Alliance.
So in terms of engagement, so we're talking about engagement with authorities. This Change Programme has given us a chance to engage with professionals, Mark, Faye, people that were in health and did what they did there, but in terms of their managerial skills coming through, even becoming a factor into how we do work within the but also it has joined up, it has brought people that are very different onto a desk, onto a table where we're discussing things and making sure we're moving in that direction with parents and carers, and also with young kids at the center of what we do.
Yeah, I think you're right. The word centre, at the centre, is key, and I think the change programme has been the mechanism that's brought us to the centre. The Alliance is now the body that ensures that we are still at the centre and are on an equal footing, and our voices are important in that space. So I think it's sort of been a journey of growth, hasn't it? And the change programme has allowed us as parent carer forums to grow individually. It's allowed us to grow in the collective space. It's allowed us to be on an equal footing, and actually more than that, it's allowed us to take charge and lead some of those things, which we wouldn't have had that level of opportunity before. And I think I'll speak about PINS in this instance. It's we really have led on the PINS programme in LLR, and the reflections of our schools has been the part that we do, the collaboration of bringing together and co-producing with the schools, creating partnership with the staff in the schools and their parent carer community, has been the most impactful thing that they've done in a very long time. And without singing our own sort of praises, but we've seen real impact and big change, and schools are asking us to come back to hold that space for them, to help bring the parent and the schools together, and I think that's been massive.
And do you feel like that's all part of building trust and confidence in each other as a system, whereas the system can sometimes feel like it kind of pits people against each other a little bit?
And I think previously there was a little bit of, sometimes you felt done too, and our parent carers probably felt done too. Whereas this has opened up to a doing with and empowered us to bring real parent carer voice into the space, and and also importantly do that feedback loop back, so our parent carers know what's happening and why it's happening and how it impacts on their lives, and most importantly their children's lives.
Can I just come back to a part which you talk about, which is confidence. From LISO, and all that we've done, I think there's one thing that parents have gotten to know, the processes within our own LAs. So we've gone into our APs and know where they are and how this is working for our EHCPs and for our children in terms of that, and it has brought us closer to things like exclusions for our children. We now know where they're getting the additional education from. I think that is a good thing in itself. I'm not saying that the exclusions are a good thing, but we're saying that at least you know what is being done for your child when they're out of school, where they're going to, and also trying to bring regulation into those places so that they are under scrutiny from our local authority. It has been a good thing. I'm not sure where it is at the moment, but I'm sure they have oversight with that. There are things that so that's what to do with education, speech and language therapy. That is LSEC, that has been something that we've been involved with from the beginning, and was out of the how many you led on which,
and so I've been sort of in the steering team, the strategic steering team for PINS and ND inclusion space, and I think us being in those positions, you've been in LISO and other things as well. I tested
the EHCP framework. So those are things that I've become aware of within the region. I know where the digital, what the people that are more advanced digitally are, and we've had conversations on how. So we've also tested how we can make a change and make it cost effectively with these programs and the test and learn that is coming out of CPP. I think I'm speaking too much here.
No, that's great. Dion, I was wondering, are there any challenges though? Because it all sounds great, but Richard mentioned sometimes actually one of the things you're able to do is disagree and know that there's a kind of container for disagreement. But what have been some of the challenges in working a bit more collaboratively and across multiple areas, perhaps?
For Rutland, if we're going to talk about the pins, we only have one school. And that was more about environmentals and stuff like that. But actually, they all knew about it. And the good thing that's come from that is the fact I'm still going into coffee mornings, even though they're not signed up to pins. So that's a massive positive. And actually, we've learned over the year, we can challenge each other. It's normal. A healthy challenge is good because you're not all going to agree. So actually, as long as you just don't take it home with you, you're all right.
I think
It's true though. It's so true.
It is.
You've got to challenge.
I think the challenges of being in this space for us as parent carers is often we're raising issues that perhaps the system has made assumptions about and that they don't necessarily want to hear because it poses a risk. So I think there's been some space for exploring our role, our remit within that, but also some reflections back into and back from people, health, education, social care, in the power of actually listening to us as well, and that valuable input into it. I think, Mark, Faye, Jane, the team have put in a tremendous amount of support for us to help us.
Starting with Pat Bullen.
Yeah, and Pat Bullen, to put in a tremendous amount of support to us to help us operate and thrive in that arena. We're not paid.
There is funding.
There is funding there, but we're not employed by this structure. We're not, and I think it was quite a strange place initially for a lot of people in this space to take on board and wonder where we fit into that. And I think, we're still growing, we're still developing.
It's still developing.
Can I come back to challenge more specifically? I think we had a lot of challenge because with all programs that have come from the government in terms of the DFE and with the CPP, there's been what is called the national direction in terms of what they wanted to do. But then local interpretation of that has always been subject to who's reading out of it. And this is where I think the challenge was. We worked with supportive structures within the DFE to get clarification in terms of what is it. So Paul Cunningham, I have written to him so many times to say, okay, clarify what this is and how does this affect us as parent care firms. We've had meetings with our management teams within the region in terms of financing, funding, making sure that we're properly equipped to do the work that we're doing. We'll never have enough money, by the way, but I think the idea that you had the conversation, or you could have the conversation, was actually a great thing that we've had with Pat Bullen first and foremost, and to where we are with Jane within the CPP program. But there's always been a conversation piece, and then also the support structures from us as forums, where we've always had the direct conversations with the CPP lead within LLR. So whether it was Pat Bullen, we had meetings with her on a regular basis, and then when she retired, we now have meetings with Jane, and we have that ongoing support. And even with the other structures that we have within the alliance, we are in rather an email shot of either Faye, Mark, or whoever. So there is communication. There's always, when we have things that we need to be ironed out if we don't understand. I think these guys have been great in terms of not labeling us as
We're treated as an equal partner.
Yeah.
So if we had an issue, we just email
Yeah.
one of the above.
And I think the role, for Mark and Faye in particular, in the Alliance, is that they've been great advocates for us, and as Richard just said, ironing out the wrinkles that come along the way, which is something that perhaps we wouldn't have been able to do by ourselves in the nature of bodies that we are. It's been tremendous. The journey has been tremendous, and I think
growth as
I think as parent carer forums, it's brought real value to who we are as bodies and who we represent, and I think we keep it real. We bring that this is what it's like on the ground, and these are where your gaps are, and let's have the conversation about how can we make this better, because actually all anybody wants to do in the space is make it as good as it can be for children with SEND.
Can I just add on something? I know you might, so this is according to my role as the NMPCF director. It was difficult because the CPP programs were actually for the 3, which is LLR. But then because I deal with the region, I couldn't say what we're doing within LLR. Even the test processes that we're doing, I couldn't share them. But then we had times where we engaged. Parts of the East Midlands that we're doing, let's say the digital EHCPs. And you're thinking, we then have to talk about what we're doing, but we had an embargo in terms of what we could say and what we couldn't say. So it was I do understand that it was a test project and it had to be confined, but it brought about a different sort of responsibility on us, which is not what we used to. We celebrate what we do and we share with others in terms of good practice. But the idea of us keeping secrets, that's a different thing.
Yeah, an interesting observation, Richard. Yeah. Final question then, just to wrap up. As you've had quite a forward sort of looking meeting today. Obviously, we've got the white paper and consultation happening. What makes you feel optimistic or hopeful about the SEND Alliance across LLR?
We look forward to what the PIN sales tech programme will look like in future, and I think that'll be different. I think it'll be better. And that's personal, especially for Rutland. Obviously, you guys would. I think it'd be really good to implement it in all the schools rather than just one school or some sort of similar package.
I think as well that going into what the new will look like, we've had this space, this structure. The Alliance is the shared space, the shared understanding, and the space to engage everybody in Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland into shaping the journey going forwards in the right way and listening to each other. And we've got place-based differences because we are all very different. But I think, we've been really lucky in that we've had this time to really test this out, and we know we've got this structure that works for us all, and that will support us into what is next and allow the space for reflection on how this will impact our children.
I think getting onto that is because we've had to learn who we are within the processes. So within the 3, Leicestershire and Rutland are three dynamic LAs with demographics that are very, very different to each other. So it meant that we learned about differences in the 3 that maybe reflect the nation as a whole. And I think the kind of strategies that have come from us as well have been innovative to the test processes and also to the reforms that we now are going to have. The things that but in terms of this is where we think that it's a good foundation for where we're going. We have confidence that the system can learn because we've picked from the differences that we had into a very good learning pot for all of us. But we've shared good practice. We've also shared moments of evaluating not good practice, and we've raised the voices in a way that's good. But also innovation, I think, has been one of the things that we've also had to have in terms of how we deal with some of the difficulties that we've had across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland.
Yeah,
Great.
I think that's cool.
So hopefully the reforms will pick up on that in terms of we're very different, but we also need a difference that brings out those differences into one common experience for all children within the SEND reforms.
My name is Faye Bayliss. I'm an NHS nurse by background. I was seconded, in September 23 when the Change Programme started. I was the ICB SRO, Senior Responsible Officer for the SEND and AP Change Programme. So very involved right from the beginning and really optimistic about the future. And so Mark, myself and Pat essentially designed what the Alliance would look like, and obviously with our management group colleagues we've morphed into this sort of second iteration of the CPP. But I'm not wearing my NHS lanyard today, and that is deliberate because I'm not representing the NHS in this Alliance role. In my view, we're here to represent the views of the people that we serve, predominantly children and young people with special education needs and disabilities, but for me it's beyond that. It's about all children and doing the best we can do to support all of our children to thrive in LLR and working with our parent carer forums and partners to achieve that goal.
Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, so I'm the other co-director for the SEND and Inclusion Alliance. Again, I'm from the NHS in background. I was the other half of my week I work as the Learning Disability and Autism Senior Responsible Officer for the ICS system. I originally got involved in the SEND work. Really, as I have a background in children's services in the community, but I went along to a commissioning meeting well before the CPP to really get what I could for the LDA system, and there was a need for some additional support in that environment, I would say. And then quite soon after providing a bit of help in that environment, Pat came along with the CPP to us, and we started on the CPP journey together. Subsequently, we, as Faye was describing, we designed the Alliance arrangements as part of a spin-off from the CPP. We designed this role as part of that we're currently inhabiting, and we're anticipating that we'd probably have a local authority person in that role, just naturally, really. And then, like sometimes happens with these things, you look around and you realise that it's you.
Excellent. And actually, yeah, that sort of really active role for health has been something that I've noted from the beginning in LLR. How does that kind of evolve from how partnership working has worked in the past? And given that isn't an LA person in that role, sort of how would you describe that wider partnership kind of that the Alliance has helped to kind of foster?
I think it's for me an exciting opportunity actually for the NHS to operate in a prevention space. My former role as Assistant Director of Nursing in the ICB, I was responsible for personalised commissioning. We had a lot of children with complex needs on a very large packages of support, particularly when they reach sort of early adulthood, 18 to 25-year-old. Many of them have been through the youth justice system, and for me that was a real failure of getting inclusion or inclusive services right for children at a much earlier age. So the more and more I got involved with SEND and got sort of to understand the system perspective, not just the health perspective, it really it was almost like a vocation for me to do something in this integration space. Integration is my background, and for me, I think we do work in silos as health, social care and education, and this was a real strong opportunity to look at young people holistically, to say how can we really support children and families to thrive and prevent this kind of just secondary deterioration, the kind of being not where people don't feel that they belong, where they sort of fall out of school, fall out of the system, and then sort of end up in a lot of trouble. And I think we can prevent all of that if we work together.
Mark, is there anything you'd like to add about that sort of different balance of relationship or focus between sort of health and the local authority together at the kind of heart of the kind of formal part of the alliance?
I mean, we're building, aren't we, on many years of partnership working, whether it's through children's trust arrangements for some of us that were involved in those over the years, however that's evolved in three different systems, effectively 3 different places locally. And I think over time we've identified where the strengths are, and we knew that we felt confident as a provider NHS organisation coming into the CPP work that we were experienced and capable of running complex multi-agency programme work and keeping a really good handle on the governance of that. So we were confident that we could offer that into the system, and we knew that other people would bring the skills that they did, and I think that was very complementary. I think the alliance has provided flexibility for people to do what they're really good at, and that way it delivers quickly and people enjoy it more. And I think as a consequence, that's a very different type of arrangement. But the relationships were there. The relationships were needed in order to create it in the first place. There needed to be a level of trust that we would see that through, and we were committed to it. And that was something that was very much a focus. Even at the very beginning of the CPP, we were interested in sustainability rather than the CPP in itself. Really, we wanted to know what sort of legacy we would get from that and how we could build on it, and the Alliance, of course, created that for us.
And I think the other thing about sustainability and an evolution really from the work that we've started in the CPP is now we have a joint commissioning strategy for LLR for SEND. We use the language of aligned commissioning because there is no new money in the system to commission things, but we know that the current setup of services isn't fit for purpose for all of our young people. So it's about how do we really start to look at the resources that we have and use them in an optimal way, which doesn't focus on sort of artificial boundaries. So where do people get stuck in the system or their needs aren't met, and how can we collectively work together to address those? So I think whilst the relationships were absolutely there, I think that the Alliance and the work that we've been doing has really allowed us to have a forward focus with an art of the possible, where we're not bound by sort of statutory or budgetary constraints. Instead, we can really test things and learn from them and be quite innovative and brave, which I think has put lots of people in a very different and optimistic mindset.
And if you both had to choose kind of an example of something that you've tested through the Change Programme, now perhaps will be sustained or kind of built on through the Alliance, kind of that there's a bit more kind of that might be felt, by children and families or by schools and settings, what would you kind of put your finger on, and kind of what was the difference that this kind of opportunity to test and learn has made?
I think for me, the things that really stand out locally as far as developments are concerned are, other than the shift in relationships, which I think is profound and gives us longevity, I would say the LSEC programme is outstanding locally and in every way. I think that's having direct impact in this, and it's very clear about the impact that it's having as well, the way it measures that. I think that's really significant. I think increasingly the PINS programme is yielding those types of benefits as well. I would say as far as more central CPP programmes are concerned, I think there was work done across the board in trying to support people to understand locally what the offer is, and leading into what's now known as the LESO. That work, I think, is the framework through which the legacy of the CPP will be seen. And I think that for me, whatever the nuance of policy and language is used, I think that framework resonates for people, whether you're in school, whether you're in a provider organisation in the NHS, or if you're in a local authority. The system as it stands at the moment in many areas is far more complicated than anyone can understand, and generally more complicated than any one individual can ever understand. It requires teams to understand what's going on, and that has to change, and it has to change at the point of delivery inside schools.
And I think for me, the work that we've done around our community inclusion programme, so it started off as part of the development of the phase 1 and 2 of the CPP, where we developed our local area inclusion plans. Well, we had the innovative idea, started in Leicestershire, of really sort of growing this LAPE from the ground up. So we convened a group of stakeholders from across health, social care, education, our parent carer forums, a really collective effort. We went out into the community, we engaged with the local communities across Leicestershire, 2 in particular, and said what's needed in your area. It was a fantastic engagement event that we held in 2 regions actually, and from that there's been some great innovative work that's come out. The latest iteration of that is the partnerships that we're now drawing with our Family First programme partnership teams, because we recognise, and this is in the white paper, about the real focus on the family unit, that community support, and actually we've now got social prescribers operating from schools, operating from family hubs. We tested a social prescribing model in one of our regions looking at under 18s. That was really successful. So we're at the stage where we want to really roll out the good stuff, but evaluate some of these programmes so that we can commission it in the longer term, because it is these sorts of innovations that the community can feel and can see the value of, and actually it doesn't cost that much money. It's not new money, we just need to look at role descriptions and where they're based. So, there's something about aligning those resources to the best effect.
Brilliant. And what about what's been challenging in this? Either challenging from the outside, kind of the way, I might not include all of this, but the way either the programme was set up or policies working, or challenging on the inside in terms of getting to the place you've got to now, which feels relatively mature and sustainable, but probably didn't feel like that all along the way. What challenge would you highlight, and how perhaps you overcome it?
Well, there was a challenge with having a third phase for the CPP that was unexpected. We were about to launch the Alliance, so we effectively were doing CPP 3 together with launching the Alliance. So that was a bit of a challenge, but not an unwelcome one, because of course it brought new thinking and new challenges that we could try to overcome. I think. My sense is that speed of delivery, balanced off with inclusion. When we want to create a culture of change which is really inclusive, there's other people that feel like they want to move on more quickly than that. And I think that's a challenge for us. It's a challenge now in the Alliance, and I think it will always be an ongoing achievement for us to overcome it. But it's not an unwelcome one. It just creates a bit of opportunity and a bit of constructive tension, for us to legitimise what we're doing and also keep the pace up.
Yeah, and I would probably go down a similar route. I think working in partnership inherently is challenging when everybody's got their own budgets to balance and priorities to deliver. Co-production is challenging to not just get around a table and discuss something, but agree something and make it happen. It's challenging, but I think what helps, a crucial element to really move forward is the belief that what you're doing is the right thing. And regardless of, we're operating in very uncertain territory with the ICB reforms, reforms across the whole NHS and social care and education. It's uncertain. So what we have to be absolutely certain of is the strength of our partnership and the desire to make a difference.
Wonderful. And I suppose that's a nice sort of link probably to the final question then, around kind of what makes you most sort of optimistic, enthusiastic about kind of the phase of work you're about to enter now that the kind of white paper and some of that direction nationally is a little bit more settled than it's been over the last 2.5 years, but also as you've launched the Alliance a bit more formally? Yeah, what's really what are you looking forward to next?
Oh, sorry, Mark. I was going to just jump in with the Innovation Fund. So we've recently, we've spent every penny, and we're really proud of that, or we've at least committed every penny to this programme because we feel it's really important. But we've actually made a modest allocation that we've called our Innovation Fund, and we've encouraged partners to bid for it because we want to get these ground up sort of projects off the ground. Working with education leaders, we've set up an Education Leaders Forum, and we've had quite a bit of interest at sort of initial conversations that will sort of progress. But with the value of bids that came in was more than double the amount of resource that we had. So I'm really optimistic that not only have we got a really engaged core delivery team in our Send and Inclusion Alliance, that lots of people want to be a part of it and can see the value in working together with health, social care and education partners. And I think there's starting to be a kind of social narrative out there about the possibilities that the Alliance can bring to our local system. And that is I'm very enthusiastic about that.
Brilliant.
I would say perhaps linked to that, there's a change in maybe not the power structure, but who's at the table and who's not at the table, and who's really got a voice. We hear different narrative, I think, than from parent carer forums. We hear a different sense from practitioners who have got an enthusiasm to get involved. That's part of their main job is SEND. That's what they do every day. Is meet the needs of children and families, and they're excited about this and they want to be involved. And so I'd like to think that as we move off into the future, we're going to see more and more of a ground up population in our meetings, leading from a very practical perspective.
That's great. I might just ask one quick question around the Education Leaders Forum then, because it feels like we're now in a phase where this is really going to be top of mind for education leaders in the mainstream, not as something that is going to be sort of solved out there, but something that's coming inside their school gate in a different way. How do you think about that challenge of engaging and taking that sort of much wider mainstream system on this kind of inclusion journey with the lessons that you've gathered from the Change Programme?
It's exciting. I think I can see us starting doing that already. Really, it's relatively early days for us in some ways. It's for us personally, it's perhaps new territory. Whilst we will have done some of that, we're in a different way. Now I can see Faye making headway and creating those relationships and being involved in the different school academy trusts and the likes, and I think that's all good. I don't see it as any, we're all trying to achieve the same thing. I don't see that there's any issue with that, and I think the Alliance brings agnostic is the phrase that Faye's used, agnostic position. Really, we don't feel responsible for explaining the past or our current position. We're just interested in what's going to happen in the future and moving forward. And so that puts us in a really healthy position, I think, to engage people in whatever they're starting from.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, because we've already set up our Education Leaders Forum and we have representatives from across the system, primary schools, secondary schools and now further education, and I'm sure it will grow. But actually, for me, this is our opportunity to really listen to schools. How can the Alliance help them? And obviously there's some workforce concerns, particularly in the white paper, because we just it's likely we won't have the bodies. So there's something about how can the Alliance really start to have those constructive conversations, look at the system resources that are available and think of it from a real strategic perspective, how can we allocate those resources fairly and equitably to where it's most needed. So I think there's something about being a system convener in our Alliance with an art of the possible, working with partners in an engaged way, and I'm really optimistic that will happen.
I'm incredibly proud to have been part of the CPP programme since it started, through the various testing stages and developments. Here in Leicester City, Leicestershire and Rutland, the programme has enabled a stronger relationship and understanding across partners, children and young people, parents and carers about what we can do together to support children and young people with SEND when they most need it. The CPP has really enabled us to focus on the universal and targeted support for children and young people with SEND, and allowed us to continue to build a balanced system approach to meet their needs earlier across education, health and care partners working together with children, young people and parents and carers. Sometimes there are challenges around the different local area structures and offers which are designed to meet different demographic needs in Leicester City, in Leicestershire and Rutland. But by working across these 3 local areas and in partnership with schools and health, it has enriched our knowledge and encouraged our joint thinking and shared working across the LLR footprint. I'm really excited to see where this will go.
In Rutland, the Change Programme has given us the opportunity to align our services with our vision in our Building Better Belonging strategy. In phase 1, we were able to look at our multi-agency panels and strengthen our decision making. We've introduced way forwards meetings where EHCP and Section 9 duties haven't been met. From that, we have a better collaborative approach with our partners, our schools, our families, whilst achieving better outcomes for young people.